Hello, welcome to our video. In this video, you will learn about the strategies to answer the questions in the listening part of TOEFL IBT. This video was made by Ahya Lisajida and Rita Izmi Nisa as our final project for our academic listening course.
In today's agenda, we will talking about first, the differences between TOEFL IBT versus TOEFL PBT. The second is, we will talking about the type question of TOEFL IBT listening, that is, gist question and details. The third is, we will talking about the type of question in TOEFL IBT listening, that is, understanding organization and relationship between ideas. And the last is, we will talking about the type of question in TOEFL IBT listening about pragmatic understanding. The differences between TOEFL IBT and TOEFL PBT. In here, it's important for you before learning TOEFL IBT listening strategies, because it can make you to understand more about the reason why you are need to learn about TOEFL IBT listening. The first question is, do you think you need to take a TOEFL test in the future? I think yes, because it's important for you if you want to enter job application or maybe university, and its rules before you will doing university graduation. The second question is, what makes TOEFL IBT different with TOEFL PBT? In TOEFL IBT, the meaning is internet-based test, while PBT is paper-based test. The content of question inside PBT and EBT is also different. In a PBT, contains of three skills, which is reading, writing, and grammar. And in IBT, contains four skills, which is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The last question is, why do you think TOEFL IBT is more difficult than the other tests? In IBT, it's taking a long time to finish. The area of knowledge that needs to be covered is wider. Meanwhile, in IBT, we also need to speak and write. So that's why in TOEFL IBT is more difficult than the other tests.
Now, we will get into the different types of questions that you will find in the listening part of TOEFL IBT and the strategies to answer those questions. So, are you ready to learn? Okay, let's begin. TOEFL IBT listening, gist question and details. What does it mean by gist question? So, gist question are questions that ask about the overall ideas of a passage as a whole. They may ask about what the subject, the topic, or the main idea of a passage is, or what the overall purpose of the passage serves. In the gist question and details, the gist may be directly stated in the passage, or you may have to synthesize the information from different parts of the passage to understand the overall gist. Moving on to the types of question in gist question and details. Now, the first type is the gist content questions. The gist of the lecture may be expressed explicitly or implicitly. This may require you to generalize or synthesize the information from what you hear. You may find this kind of questions like, what problem does the man have? What is the lecture mainly about? So the tips for this type of questions is, use your notes and eliminate choices that don't fit. The second type is the gist purpose questions. They are most likely to occur in conversations than in lectures. So you may find questions as why does the student visit the professor? Or why does the professor explain X? And the tips for this type of questions: first, identify the original reason why the student went to the professor's office. The second tip is, in many times, understanding the student's problem will help to solve the question. So it is really important for you to understand the student's problem. The third type of question is the detail questions. They require you to understand and remember explicit details or facts from a lecture or conversation. Here are some examples of questions that you may find in the test. What resulted from the invention of X? According to the professor, what is one way that X can affect Y? So, to answer this type of questions, there are 4 strategies. The first one is to listen for repeated information. Many detailed questions are based on information that the professor repeats several times. Pay attention to any repeated ideas or definitions and make sure to write them down in your notes. The second strategy is listen for expressions that introduce details. For example, expressions like this. This is important. You might want to write this down. Or, it is really important that you understand. So, pay attention to this kind of expressions that introduce details. They might help you to answer the question. The third strategy is watch out for exact word matches. Correct answers for detailed questions usually contain reworded information from the lecture or conversation. Be cautious about the answer options that contain the exact wording from the listening, as they may not include the information that the question is asking for. So don't be distracted by the wording. The fourth or the last strategy is, if you are not sure, make guesses related to the main idea. Detailed questions are often asked about supporting details for main points. If you are stuck, choosing the answer option that coincides with the main idea of the listening might be a good guessing strategy.
Second types of TOEFL IBT listening is understanding organization and relationship between ideas. The first one, we will talk about understanding organization. What should you do in understanding organization questions? First, in here you may ask how the ideas are organized. Second, you may ask directly or need to fill in a chart. Third, you need to understand main points and how they are organized. Remember that the main points are not only in one detail. And the last is you may word more than one point. So in understanding organizations, there are many possible questions. In here, there are 2 possible questions in understanding organization. First is, how is the information in the passage organized? And the second is, click in the correct column or box. There are 2 strategies in understanding organization. The first is, when listening, think of how the points are organized. And the second is, you may take notes. In here, you can use bullet points, especially for details. How to recognize? In understanding organization, there are typically phrased as follows. First, how does the professor organize the information about X that he presents to the class? Second, how is the discussion organized? Third, why does the professor discuss X? And the last, Why does the professor mention X? And now we will talking about understanding relationship. What should you do in understanding relationships questions? The first one is ask how. In understanding a relationship, it will ask how different ideas in the passage are related. The ideas in the passage are not stated directly. The second is you need to draw a conclusion, predict an outcome, make an inference, recognize sequence, determine the cause of an event. So, in understanding relationship, there are two possible questions. The first is, what is most likely, blah blah blah. And the second is, what is implied, or what can be inferred, blah blah blah. In understanding relationship, there are two strategies. The first is, listen carefully and you need to take notes. And the second is, imagine how the points are related and draw a conclusion. Last but not least, in the TOEFL ideal listening text, there are pragmatic understanding. This is the last type of question in the TOEFL ideal listening test. In the pragmatic understanding, there are two types of questions. The first is understanding the function, and the second is understanding speaker's stance. In understanding the function, it doesn't deal with the meaning of the words the speaker say, but the information implied by how the speaker said them. Second, many times the speaker uses slangs, idioms, or says things that are not directly relevant to what the question asks. So what are the possible questions in understanding the function? There are four types of possible questions in understanding the function. The first one is, why does the student say, or mention, or refer to X? Second, why does the professor say, or mention, or refer to X? The third is, listen again to the part of the lecture or conversation. And the last is, what does the student or professor mean when he or she say this? So the strategies that you can use in understanding the function is, first, focus on why the speaker said something. And the second is, you may taking note. Next, in understanding speaker stance, there are many possible feelings in understanding speaker stance, such as positive or negative, happy or sad, impressed and unimpressed, enthusiastic or bored, and doubtful or certain. In understanding speaker stance, there are two possible questions. The first is, listen again to part of the question and passage. The second is, select the sentence that best expresses how the speaker feels. In here, you can use third strategies. The first strategy is listen to what is said in the context. The second is focus on the intonation of the speakers. The last is draw a conclusion. So yes, finally we finished study about the strategies that we can use in TOEFL listening IBT. So we will hope for you that this can help you to understand about TOEFL IBT listening test and the strategies. Thank you so much. See you.